What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT. I have a bunch of preseason takeaways that we have to get into. Now, with the preseason being over, we have some more clarity on the Browns quarterback situation entering this season, not just with Joe Flacco being the starter, but who's the backup behind them. Shilo Sanders got released by the Bucks. It's the NFL out to get Deion Sanders' sons. The Giants have a new lifeline this season. There's a lot of things that we have to get into. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are excited that we are 1 week away from the start of the NFL season. Before we start seeing games that actually matter, we have one more week to go, and then it's a complete marathon to February, man. Who ends up winning the Super Bowl? Go ahead, give us a 5-star review, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from. You can find us, JT Sports, link down in the description below. Let's get into it. The NFL has always shown that they have no problem playing dirty. This company, this business does not always play as clean as what you think they may. Any conspiracy out there is not off the table when it comes to the kind of business that the NFL is. They blackball Colin Kaepernick after he knelt for the national anthem. They outed John Gruden, linking personal emails, revealing him using derogatory and inflammatory language when initially they were using those emails to get rid of Dan Snyder, but instead they used those emails to get rid of John Gruden because Roger Goodell and a few owners had a grudge against John Gruden, and they used the Dan Snyder investigation as an opportunity to get John Gruden out of the league. So if the NFL was willing to get rid of John Gruden by dirty means, which is why they now are losing in the lawsuit that he has filed against them, why do you think that they can't be using dirty tactics to hold back Deion Sanders' sons from having success in the NFL? Shedeur Sanders and Shilo Sanders both had very rough endings to what looked like very promising preseasons. Shedeur Sanders, in his first preseason game against the Carolina Panthers, he looked all world. He missed the next preseason game with the injury, and then he returned in his final preseason game, and Shedeur Sanders didn't look good. He looked worse than Dillon Gabriel, but he wasn't afforded the same situation to be evaluated equally as Dillon Gabriel. Dillon Gabriel was playing with a much better offensive line. Shedeur Sanders played with the offensive line that all of the entirety of it got cut after the game. The receivers weren't good. The play calling wasn't as good for Shedeur as what it was for Dillon Gabriel, in the sense of allowing Shedeur an opportunity to showcase his abilities. He was pressured on the majority of his dropbacks. Every time he went back to pass, it was a guy in his face. Shedeur Sanders, though, the same issues that he had at Colorado that were concerns coming into the league were fully on display in the final week of the preseason. He still holds the ball too long. He doesn't step up in clean pockets. He drops back into pressure. These are things that Shedeur Sanders didn't clean up coming out of Colorado, and now they're starting to look very ugly in the NFL. And when Shedeur Sanders gets his opportunity, it doesn't matter if it's with him not having fair conditions or the right conditions, no matter what. And Shedeur Sanders situation. You have to be able to dominate whatever situation you're in when you get your name called to go out there and prove what you can do. The NFL, you can't really control anything if you are Deion Sanders or any of his sons, because the NFL has the final say. And you can decide not to watch this league if you don't like how the NFL has treated the Sanders family, and that's perfectly understandable. But there are a bunch of people who are still going to watch this sport. And you have a family with sons of a Hall of Famer, one of the greatest of all time, who not only want to live up to him and his legacy, but they want to surpass his legacy. And in order to fulfill their dreams, they have to play in the NFL, and they have to be able to overcome what's being thrown their way. All-time greats always prevail, no matter the obstacle. There's nowhere that Shedeur Sanders can go. Shedeur Sanders, if he was to ask for a trade, the same 31 teams that passed on him in the draft would be the same ones passing on him again if he was available in the trade. Shedeur Sanders, there's a lot of unwanted publicity and attention that comes with him as your backup quarterback. If you already have a proven quarterback, if you're the Bengals and you have Joe Burrow, why would you trade for Shedeur Sanders? And then, the moment Joe Burrow plays bad, you have a bunch of toxic publicity in your locker room. That's what makes it so hard for Shedeur Sanders to have any better of a situation than what he currently is in with the Browns. When this season goes wrong as expected for the Browns, and they're 1-10 going into week 12, they're going to have no choice but to start Shedeur Sanders, because the fans aren't going to want to see Kenny Pickett or Dylan Gabriel. They're going to want to see Shedeur Sanders. And with nothing left to play for at that point, the only way the Browns can still keep fans engaged and they can give people a reason to buy merch and tune in and attend these Browns games is by throwing out Shedeur Sanders, because everybody wants to see Shedeur Sanders. The Browns haven't gone about this quarterback situation properly. They've used politics. Shedeur has been the best quarterback throughout camp and the majority of the preseason. One bad preseason outing doesn't define the body of work that he has put on display throughout the preseason and throughout training camp. The Browns use politics to determine this quarterback battle. So if they use politics to determine their current depth chart entering week 1, they'll use the same politics again when their season is over. They have nothing to play for and they're struggling to keep fans engaged. The fans are going to say, we want Shedeur. The owner is going to give the fans what they want, because the NFL is still a business. It's driven by money. It's driven by how many eyeballs you can attach to yourself. And the Browns right now have the biggest attention magnet in the NFL. The Browns owner is going to want to see that, because he's going to care about the money if you're not able to make it to the playoffs, or at least still be in the race to make it to the playoffs. The reason why the Browns drafted Shedeur Sanders, despite not giving him a fair opportunity, was for clicks. They drafted Shedeur Sanders for clickbait. They wanted to build up their personal brands. They wanted to build up their team following, because nobody gave two flying F's about the Browns until they drafted Shedeur Sanders. This franchise has been dead and irrelevant for the entirety of my lifetime. The only reason why we see Shedeur Sanders in Cleveland is because the NFL forced it to happen. At this point, if the NFL was holding grudges against John Gruden, they'll be holding grudges, conspiring against Deion Sanders' sons as well. Shilo Sanders was provoked and getting cut by the Buccaneers. The guy was pulling on his face mask, provoking him. Shilo Sanders came back with a 1-2 combo, and he was up on out of there. This morning, just comes out that he's released by the Buccaneers. And life it goes, it doesn't matter who starts it. It matters who gets caught finishing it. And Shilo Sanders got caught finishing it. And when you get caught doing it, there's nothing else that you can do. Shilo Sanders, we know that he had a uphill battle to make it on the Buccaneers final roster, and he didn't really do himself any favors deciding to get into a UFC match with the Buffalo Bills tight end. This was not a good weekend for Deion Sanders' sons, and right now it just looks like all the odds are against them to succeed in the NFL, and we won't get any more answers about their futures until 2-3 months from now. If you don't want the starting quarterback of your favorite team to play like Anthony Richardson, go ahead, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, check us out, JT Sports, on all podcasting platforms. Give us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. Let's get back to the video. There are great vibes about the New York Giants coming out of the preseason. They finished undefeated. Jaxson Dart, their first-round pick at quarterback, was looking fantastic. And the Giants now have life as we approach week 1 of the regular season. A few months ago, before the preseason started, before training camp, you looked at the Giants, you say they got a solid roster, but a difficult schedule. They could win anywhere between 1 to 5 games max. But you look at how they played in the preseason, how good their quarterback play was, no matter if it was Jaxson Dart, Russell Wilson, whoever else, Jameis Winston, their quarterback room is as good as it's ever been, and they at least should be able to get competent quarterback play. But let's say, worst case scenario, the New York Giants, they go into Thanksgiving and they're 4-6, 4-7. Do you end up using that last lifeline that you have if you're Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen, who are both on the hot seat, who are coaching for their jobs this year, who are playing for their futures and their paychecks with the New York Giants? Do you make the change and put it all on a rookie and Jaxson Dart? Jaxson Dart, when he was coming out of Ole Miss, I wasn't a hater of him. I was high on him. I thought that he was a huge sleeper in the draft until he turned into one of the more talked about prospects in the class, despite me having a 2nd-round grade on him. I didn't hate Jaxson Dart being a 2nd-round pick. I was just a little bit against him being a 1st-round pick with the organization that has a GM and a head coach that have blurry futures. Why would they draft somebody that doesn't give them the opportunity to win right now and best save their jobs? But with how good Jaxson Dart played in the preseason, the Giants, when their season goes left and Russell Wilson ends up flaming out, Jaxson Dart, you use him as the last lifeline to turn around this season and to possibly save the jobs of Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll. Because what we possibly can see Jaxson Dart do when he comes in and saves the Giants season this year, when everything starts out wrong, it's the same thing that Lamar Jackson did for John Harbaugh during his rookie season with the Baltimore Ravens. Before the Ravens started Lamar Jackson in his rookie season, they were on the brink of getting eliminated from playoff contention. Joe Flacco was struggling, and it was looking like John Harbaugh was in his final days as the Ravens head coach. All of a sudden, Joe Flacco gets injured. They make the switch to Lamar Jackson, and the rest is history. He turns the season around. They get to the playoffs. And from that point on, he's been a 2-time MVP, a multiple-time first-team All-Pro, and one of the greatest quarterbacks of our generation. Now, I'm not saying that Jaxson Dart will have the exact same career arc as Lamar, but a late season change to a promising rookie quarterback that has showed a lot of upside, that has shown the ability that he can be an instant starter for the New York Giants right now, will ignite a flame into this team that will need it at the right time. And the NFL season begins after Thanksgiving. If they make the quarterback switch to Jaxson Dart around that time, that still would give them enough time to get hot, turn their season around, and get into the playoffs. The teams that separate themselves are the ones that play good football during the second half of the season, and making the late season quarterback change to Jaxson Dart is what could possibly propel the Giants to being a playoff team this year. They already have a pretty good foundation in place for Jaxson Dart. Offensive-minded coach, an improved offensive line, one of the best young receivers in the NFL and Malik Neighbors, and they have an outstanding pass rush. With Jaxson Dart starting at quarterback late during the season, this could ignite the Giants, saving the jobs for Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen, making it to the playoffs. Jaxson Dart is the New York Giants' last lifeline for Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll if things don't go to plan the first half of this season. When the Colts first signed Daniel Jones in free agency, it was evidently clear that Anthony Richardson's days as their starting quarterback was numbered. Their patience for him was wearing thin. And when he tapped out on this team last year, it was the beginning of the end for Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis. Daniel Jones may not be a good quarterback. He's one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL, but at least Daniel Jones can give you capable quarterback play. At least Daniel Jones gives you a chance to win. Shane Steichen, Indianapolis, the past 2 seasons, they've won 8 games with Anthony Richardson completing under 50% of his passes. And 2 years before that with Gardner Minshew, who has bounced around as a backup. He's been on 2 teams ever since that year, and the Colts came close to winning 10 games and making it to the playoffs with him. That shows you that as long as Daniel Jones can be a good conductor, he can be a good orchestrator of the train, the Colts can be a shocking football team this year to watch. They probably won't make it to the playoffs, but maybe they could sneak in as a 9-8 team if Daniel Jones is able to give them competent quarterback play. The Colts don't need Daniel Jones to be a world changer. They got Jonathan Taylor in the backfield. The majority of the game plan is simple. Give the football to Jonathan Taylor. Now, Indianapolis has really good receivers. They got a decent offensive line and a really good offensive play caller. Daniel Jones is in the perfect situation where the expectations are low, and with the low expectations, it's not hard to thrill a small crowd. When you have low expectations, that's the best opportunity to exceed expectations, because when nobody thinks anything of you, just the bare minimum is improvement. Anthony Richardson was so bad that you were better off calling Hail Marys all game with him at quarterback than what you were calling anything else. He was either going to throw an 80-yard touchdown or overthrow a 5-yard slant to an open receiver by 80 yards. Anthony Richardson is the worst quarterback to have on your team, because when he's on the field, which isn't that often, he's not good. And when he's off the field, he's losing meaningful time that he needs to develop. What the Colts are desperate for out of Daniel Jones is somebody that just doesn't lose them games. Somebody that defenses somewhat have to game plan for. You're not game planning for Anthony Richardson. Force him to beat you from the pocket. Daniel Jones can do a lot of the things that they wanted to do when they first drafted Anthony Richardson. Design quarterback runs. He has a good arm. He can make some big throws downfield occasionally. He can be a decent, efficient quarterback for the Colts as long as they're able to run the football really effectively with Jonathan Taylor. As long as Daniel Jones is decent for the Indianapolis Colts, they play in a division that's not that tough. They got a solid roster. They get that. 9 wins definitely is the best case scenario for them. They got a coaching staff and a good team that can elevate average quarterback play. They won 9 games with Gardner Minshew 2 years ago. They were somehow able to win games with Anthony Richardson at quarterback. Daniel Jones has a good coaching staff, a run game, good weapons, a weak division. If he gives them what the Colts have been looking for, I think that we end up seeing a shockingly better Colts team than what we expect. I am ready to make my prediction for who's going to win the Super Bowl this season, and there has never been a more obvious, clear-cut Super Bowl winner going into any NFL season as what there is with the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson is pound for pound the most talented quarterback in NFL history. We have never seen a quarterback as close to perfection as what Lamar Jackson is. He can do everything. Last year, he had 41 touchdowns and under 5 interceptions. That was one of the most efficient quarterback seasons in NFL history. Aaron Rodgers is the closest thing that the NFL has ever seen to Lamar Jackson. Lamar is a juiced up version of Aaron Rodgers. He can beat you throwing the football, then he can absolutely obliterate you running the football. Lamar Jackson throws the ball like prime Aaron Rodgers, and he runs the ball like prime Barry Sanders. This is the most unstoppable quarterback that God has ever put in this game. For Lamar to keep coming up short in the playoffs is something that can't continue to happen with how talented he is. I expect for Lamar Jackson and the Ravens offense to score in every possession. When you have Lamar Jackson on your team, you should play in real life like how anybody using Lamar Jackson and the Ravens plays on Madden. Scoring every possession damn near. With the defense that the Ravens have, signing Jair Alexander, they have clearly the best secondary in the NFL. Lamar doesn't have to put that Superman cape on for the Ravens in the playoffs this year to get over the hump. This defense is going to win the Super Bowl for Baltimore this year. They always say that defense wins championships. The Ravens have 3 All-Pros in their secondary. They have 2 up-and-coming rookie and second-year players. This is the best team in the NFL at drafting and player development. They have a great coaching staff. There is no reason why we shouldn't see Lamar Jackson hoisting up that Silver Lombardi trophy in early February. The Ravens have the best team, the most talented roster, the best quarterback, the pound-for-pound best quarterback in NFL history. You got to keep asking yourself, instead of when are they going to get over the hump, how much longer is the NFL going to keep weighing this team down? How much longer is it going to take until the Ravens break through? That's the question that I ask. I don't question if the Ravens can get over the hump. I just question, when is that going to happen? And better time than ever than to do it right now. They got a better roster than anybody. The Ravens are just too overpowered not to win the Super Bowl this year. Nobody has been higher on the Chicago Bears going into this season more than me. I'm higher on this team more than Chicago Bears fans are, and I'm a Steelers fan. I'm higher on this team more than some within this organization may be on themselves. The Chicago Bears are the most improved team entering this season. Every year, there's a team that goes from worst to first in their division. The Chicago Bears could very well be a team that does that this season. They have arguably the best team from a talent standpoint in their division. They have a better defense than the Lions, better pass rush, more proven secondary. Their offensive line has improved. They're deep at receiver. There's just so much depth and talent on the Chicago Bears that they're going to be able to compete with anybody, anytime, any place, rather if it's in this division, in the conference, or out of the conference. The Bears' potential is that they could get the 1 seed in the NFC this year. Ben Johnson is the second coming of Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan. Every once in a while, we get a revolutionary offensive mind like Ben Johnson, and you give a generational head coaching candidate, a generational quarterback in Caleb Williams, the potential is limitless. Caleb Williams, I have him being a finalist for MVP this year. He will be the first quarterback in the history of the Bears franchise to ever eclipse 4,000 yards passing. Look at the personnel that he has to do it with. You got a bevy of riches at receiver. Nobody's going to be able to slow down your ground game of how good your offensive line is going to be. And you have a wizard as your head coach calling plays. There's never been a more gold-plated road for a Bears quarterback to finally break 4,000 yards than the one that Caleb Williams has to play on this season. It is made for the Chicago Bears to not just be good, to not just improve, but to be one of the best. In terms of roster construction, from a balanced standpoint of having a good offense and a good defense, I may argue to you that the Bears are one of the few teams that will have a top 10 defense and a top 10 offense respectively this season. The talent's there. Montez Sweat is a B-tier pass rusher. You got a good secondary. The only issue with the Bears last year was that they were a poorly coached team. Ben Johnson changes that. Hiring Ben Johnson is the move that wins the Chicago Bears the NFC North this year. He will be the biggest addition of any team this offseason with what he's going to do to Caleb Williams' development, the elevation that Caleb Williams is going to have going from subpar quarterback playing his rookie season to playing like an MVP candidate is going to propel the Bears to not just the best team in the NFC North, but debatably the team that could be the one that de-seats the Philadelphia Eagles from making it back to the Super Bowl again. Ben Johnson is going to be a fantastic head coach for years to come for the Chicago Bears, and I'm drinking all of the Chicago Bears Kool-Aid with Ben Johnson.